Bienvenidos chicos a Landfall, TV. Mi nombre es Vicente González, el McQueen. Me acompaña Matías Salinas, el payaso. Y hoy tenemos el invitadísimo de los invitadísimos. Tenemos a Sheldon Menery en vivo y en directo para que nos responda unas cuantas preguntas, nos haga saber sus opiniones. Etcétera. Vamos a ver si también podemos atender algunas preguntas del público, etcétera. Eh, super emocionado. We're very excited, Sheldon, to have you here. This is like a milestone for our community, for our little group in the people of Landfall. So thank you very much for having us interview you right now in this very moment.
Thanks for having me.
So,
Voy yo.
Sí, anda tú, Matías. Explícale a los chicos en el chat cómo vamos a hacerlo. Yo le voy a primero mandar un saludo a Botella Vacía por seguir nuestro canal. Gracias, muchas gracias. Matías, te dejo a ti un rato.
Este conversatorio se realizará de la siguiente forma. Yo formularé las preguntas en español y Vicente las hará en inglés. Cuando subamos este video a YouTube estará con subtítulos. So we're going to start right now. Vicente is going to make the questions in English, but I have three little questions to Sheldon that I like to make.
Sure.
¿Cuál es tu comandante favorito? ¿Cuál es tu carta favorita de Magic? ¿Y cuál es tu color favorito? Which is your favorite commander? Which is your favorite Magic card? And which is your favorite color?
Okay, so my favorite commander is the one that I'm playing at the moment. I have 56 or 57 decks, so whatever I'm playing, that's my favorite right now. My favorite card in all Magic, it's funny that for next week on Star City Games, I'm doing a list of the top 25 judge foils of all time. And when people ask me this question, I always say Living Death. Right?
Yeah, the greatest.
but when I was doing this list, I realized that I put Greater Good higher on the list than Living Death. So Bene Supremo, like we say in Italian, may be my favorite card, but I'm still going to go with Living Death. And my favorite color, I think that I play more decks with black in them than any other color. I can get along without green. It's easy to say green because green can do nearly everything. But let's go with black. I'm in that kind of mood today.
Okay.
That's a great mood, actually. Would you care to make the commander explicit? Your current commander, which is it?
Well, last night I played Rith, the Awakener, in 2 games. But I think if I have to answer that question, it's probably Carador Ghost Chieftain is the deck that I'll go back to time and time and time again.
Nice. So, la primera parte de esta entrevista se va a hacer conociendo a Sheldon. Y la primera pregunta es, ¿cómo y dónde conociste el Magic y qué fue lo que te gustó del juego?
Okay, so as I was saying, Sheldon, we're going to talk a bit about yourself. So the first question is going to be, when and how did you discover Magic, the game? How were you dragged into it? And, and what do you think is the most interesting part of the game itself?
I started playing Magic literally on the first day. I was at Gen Con in 1993 in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and I had some time in the dealer's room. So I was walking around the exhibit hall, and I knew Wizards of the Coast as a role-playing game company. And I saw their kind of small booth. I was like, oh, yeah, those guys that make sort of system agnostic role-playing game supplements, and they're very good. So there was a big crowd around their booth, and I said, okay. So I stuck my head in. There were people playing the game. They were demonstrating the game. I said, okay, that sounds interesting. So I grabbed a starter deck and a booster, and walking away from the table, opened the booster. I mean, opening a starter deck while you're walking around is difficult. So I just opened the booster pack. And the first Magic card I ever looked at was Time Walk. and I said,
what a piece.
I don't know the game yet, but I bet that's a good card. And, you know, again, it's the Gen Con exhibit hall. So you're seeing a lot of games and things. So just put the Magic cards in my bag. Mm-hmm. And I had driven out to Milwaukee. I was in the U.S. Air Force stationed at the Pentagon. Mm-hmm. And we had driven to Milwaukee, which is about a 2-day drive. And I remember on the drive home, one of my friends and my ex-wife were in the back seat trying to figure out how to play Magic. And
of the cards.
It was about a month later, it was in September sometime, that I actually played the game for the first time. And I swear to you, I was hooked from the first minute I played Magic. I think Veteran Bodyguard was the card that really got me excited.
That's amazing to experience the game like at launch. That's a dream, I think. Now looking back, actually, of course.
Sure.
La segunda pregunta es ¿qué te llevó a ser juez?
Okay, so the next question would be what led you to become a judge? What motivated you to go that extra mile for the game?
So I was stationed at the time. In '93. Let's see. In 1994, I moved to Belgium. Mm-hmm. I was stationed at the NATO Programming Center, where we wrote air defense software for the NATO countries. Mm-hmm. And I went there and I met a couple of people that played Magic already. There's a few of the other Americans. There were only 12 Americans, so our local community was very small. But I got friendly with a bunch of Germans and Belgians and French people, and we started playing. And then in '96, I think, the first Grand Prix ever was held in Amsterdam. So it was about a 3-hour drive from where I lived to go to Amsterdam. So we said, let's go. So a bunch of us, our little multinational group got together and went to Amsterdam to play in the Grand Prix. And I think I went 3-2-1 the first day. So definitely didn't make day 2. So on day 2, I was wandering around the hall looking for something to do. And somebody at the Wizards of the Coast booth said, hey, do you know the rules of Magic? And by that time, I had already started running some local tournaments and getting involved with some of the local game shops. Mm-hmm. So I said, I do know the rules of Magic. In fact, he said, would you like to be a judge? So I said, what's involved?
Right.
Right. So back then, your score on the test determined the level you would start at. Mm-hmm. So I was never a level 1 judge.
At what level did you start?
I started at level 2. I missed level 3 by 2 points. So I started at level 2 and then got involved in the whole process.
Right.
My first Grand Prix as a judge was somewhere in the Benelux. I don't even remember. My first Pro Tour was in Mainz in Germany in 1997.
Okay, so this happened after the great change in the rules, right? Back in '96 was the change that changed the stack and
yep.
Right?
Right. I actually wrote an article. I think it was level 3 by that point, but I wrote an article for the judge website or whatever we had back then. I don't even remember if it was a listserv or a mailing list or whatever it was we had. I wrote an article called "How 6th Edition Rules Will Make Me Fat," and the idea of the article was that I would have to make fewer judge calls because the rules of 6th edition were much simpler and easier to understand than 5th edition. So then when I went to judge at a GP or a Pro Tour qualifier or something, I wouldn't have to do as much work. So I would just sit there and eat chocolates and get chubby.
That's a nice one. Matthias?
Bueno, voy a hacer dos pequeñas preguntas. Aparte de Magic, ¿qué otros pasatiempos tienes? Y una pregunta del chat que están preguntando de qué edición es la hoja de cartas que está atrás tuya.
Okay, so I'm going to do it backwards. Somebody in the chat is asking from what edition is the card sheet in your background.
That is an uncut foil sheet from Commander 2011. It was a gift from my co-workers at Wizards of the Coast last year when I did time as a Magic card designer.
That's
So
Nice.
on my last day, they gave that. Everybody signed it. We put it in the poster. It was a very, very thoughtful gift.
Yeah, and that's like a unique gift actually, because as far as I know, no foils from
It's a
Commander
one-of-a-kind
2000.
thing.
Right.
Yep.
And the question to get in topic is it what other hobbies besides Magic do you currently run?
Well, I'm like many of everybody in chat. I'm a gamer, so I play a lot of games, both board games, computer games. Outside of gaming, sometimes I ask people, tell me something about yourself that I couldn't guess. And if you're a Magic player, I can guess that you're a gamer. I can guess that you like Star Wars, right? So outside of the games I'm currently playing are Witcher 3 and Out of the Park Baseball 21. Those are my two games right now. Outside of Magic, outside of gaming, I'm a cook. I'm a foodie. I have an 800 bottle wine cellar that.
Wow.
Oh,
Any Chilean wine over there?
Well, yeah. As a matter of fact, quite honestly, Chilean wines show to me a lot of sort of integration with the European spirit of making wine. To me, South American wines are sometimes a little fond of having too much oak in the barrels, like too much new oak. But there are South American wines that I absolutely love. Conchi Toro is the one that comes off the top of my head, of course.
yeah.
So yeah, there's probably maybe 3 to 5% of our cellar is Chile and Argentina.
Nice. That's very nice.
So in addition to that, I spend most of my time with Magic, so I have less time for other hobbies than
Fuera de los hobbies, ¿qué otras cosas son importantes para Sheldon?
Okay. So besides hobbies aside, what is your priority like in life right now? What are the things that are important to you besides gaming, of course, besides the great wine cellar? What do you hold holds value or is important to you?
My relationship with my wife is extremely important to me. We've been together 15 years. My wife is an actual rocket scientist.
That's nice.
Nice.
She's an aerospace engineer. That's certainly my relationship with her, and our our 4 cats are the most important thing. But the thing that I'm focused on right now is beating cancer. I was diagnosed 4 years ago with throat cancer. It keeps coming back, and we're going to try to chase it away for good now. I'm currently undergoing a round of chemotherapy and immunotherapy, so we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I think I speak for all of the chat and all the community. We wish you a speedy recovery. I hope you beat that bastard of a disease.
Yeah.
And I'm allowed.
I mean, looking at me, you'd never know, right?
Yeah.
Although my hair's getting thin.
Yeah. So we hope you get much better, Sheldon. Matthias?
Yeah.
¿Sí?
A little question. Your wife profession is the reason that you live in Florida because Cabo, Cañaveral?
Yeah, we moved here from. She doesn't work for NASA, but she works for a federally funded research and development company. So I retired from the U.S. Air Force in 2004, and we were up in Virginia. And in 2006, she said, "Hey, my company has a job that looks kind of interesting in Tampa. Would you like to go?" I was like, "Of course, I can, I'm retired now. I can work from wherever I want." And the day I retired, she said, well, not the day I retired, as I was coming up on retiring from the Air Force, she said, "What do you want to do?" I said, "Well, I was in computers and communications, so the companies were going to pay me good money." I said, "Well, this company will pay me a lot of money." She's like, "Yeah, but what do you want to do?" And I said, "Write books and play games." And she said, "Then that's what you do."
Obviously, the life.
Right. So the day I retired, she had a small gift for me. She's like, "What? You don't need to give me. We're married, right?" And she said, it was a very small bag, and she said, "It's work clothes." And I opened the bag, and it was T-shirts and underwear. And it's like, those are my work.
Yeah, those are the.
Nice.
So her company moved us to Florida in 2006. Mm-hmm. I briefly owned a gourmet market and wine shop until the economic downturn in 2008.
Right.
Did a lot of damage, obviously, to the economy. Small businesses, especially those that were just starting, didn't really have much of a chance. And after retiring from judging in 2011, I then went and did pro tour coverage for a while. And then I went back to school in 2013 to finish an undergraduate degree that I had started in 1979 and not gotten around to finishing.
Ryan May style.
And then went on. There was a great creative writing program at the University of South Florida, very close to the house. So I went there, got an undergraduate degree, and then got a master's degree in English literature.
Congrats. Ok, antes de pasar a la segunda parte, que vamos a hablar sobre la RC, la GAG y otras cosas, quiero hacer dos preguntas que están en el chat. First of all, there are many people in the chat sending best wishes with the cancer fight.
Thank you. Thank all of them. Gracias a todos.
Una pregunta que está acá en el chat que dice, ¿qué piensas de cómo ha evolucionado el programa de jueces? Y si hoy conocieras el programa, ¿te gustaría ser juez ahora?
Okay, so somebody in chat is asking about how do you feel about the evolution of the judge program, and if knowing how the program is right now, would you like to be a part of it right now?
I'm still waiting on the phone call for them to bring me back and be the commissioner of magic. Yes.
Is that the end boss of all judges?
Yeah, yes, that's the actual end boss of all judges. It's been a long time since I retired. I retired in 2011, so we're talking
9 years already.
It'll be 9 years come first week of November, I think. So I actually don't really know much about what the inner workings of the program are anymore. Sometimes I talk to my friends who are still involved, but especially since the judge program has moved to Judge Academy, I'm not particularly well versed in how they do operations. Occasionally somebody will ask me how I get certified, and I know who to point them to. But for the most part, the judge program, the thing that I see currently from the judge program, and it was something that had turned while I was still a level 5, was it used to be a very exclusive club. There was a very small number of people that held all the power, and one of the things that I worked to do was to broaden that base and sure, when your judge program is 500 or 700 judges, you might be able to do that. When your judge program is 5,000, you have to branch out. So we redesigned the program back in the 2007, 2008 era, and I think some of those structures still stay, where there are pillars of the program that individuals have control over and support. And I have to say, one of the unsung heroes of helping with that rewrite was Thales Bittencourt, who was a great judge. And I think he's moved away from the program now. He never got the credit. I think he never got the credit that he deserved for helping us with the rewrite of that program. He was a Brazilian level 3 at the time. And so if he's ever watching, thanks, Hollis. You did a great job.
Let's hope he hears your comments, of course.
I think the real answer to the question is that the judge program, as it got larger, somehow felt more like a family than it did when it was smaller. And that's a pretty good feeling. I know that right now I could go nearly anywhere in the world, and I probably know somebody in the judge program.
Nice.
That's amazing, actually.
I've got a friend nearly anywhere I travel to.
Mm-hmm. That's a good thing, actually.
Yeah.
The next question, Matthias.
Okay.
Which one?
Second part, it's going to be about EDH, RC, and GAG.
Okay. CAG, right.
CAG. Esta pregunta que se responda brevemente y en pocas palabras, ¿cómo podrías contarnos cómo se gestó Commander como formato y qué son las cosas que más te gustan del formato?
Okay, so we asked you before in behind the scenes, and can you tell us about how the EDH came to be as a format, but briefly, like maybe something very concise. And what is it about the format about the format that you like the most?
So the format came together in I got the idea of the seed of the idea of a format from some friends of mine when I was stationed in Alaska, and I think that he got it from an old Duelist magazine, but they showed me this format. And it was very much the seed of an idea. And to make a long story kind of short, I saw some of the possibilities, but knew that it needed a little more. So I took my existing knowledge of Magic formats. Again, I was a level 3, or not quite level 4 yet. I took my knowledge of Magic formats and sort of expanded the vision, and then introduced it to the judges at the Pro Tour, and this was the tipping point that came, and showing the Pro Tour judges EDH, as we called it back then, was like setting a flame to dry tinder, right? It just it exploded, and they grabbed it and they ran with it, and by 2006, a Canadian level 3 named Gavin Duggan said, "We've been doing this a lot at the Pro Tour. We should probably form a rules committee." So we did. We formed a rules committee, wrote up some format rules, launched a website eventually, I think.
The website that didn't change for up to 2 years ago, right?
Yes, the GeoCities website that didn't change until last year. And so Gavin and I and another Canadian judge named Duncan McGregor formed the original rules committee. Duncan moved on, and eventually Scott Larrabee and Toby Elliott came on, and it has been since 2008. It has been the 4 of us, and we added Devin Rule, who was a regular on a couple of the internet forums in 2012. Then he got some exciting job opportunities, so he moved along. So it's been Scott and Toby and Gavin and I ever since. So we've I mean, the four of us have worked together for literally 20 years, right? Scott was a Pro Tour manager. Toby was a level 5 judge. Gavin was a regional coordinator and a net rep and level 3 judge. So, you know, sometimes people who are relatively new to the format will say something like, well, you don't know anything about competitive Magic. And I like to flatter myself that I know a thing or two about competitive Magic.
Of course.
Of course.
How can you know then?
My favorite thing about the format, and it was intentional in the design, it's worked into the DNA of Commander that it is different from competitive Magic formats. It was intentionally designed as a rest from competitive Magic for people who wanted something else. And this is why the judge community grabbed onto it so quickly, because they had just spent a whole day with their elbows deep in competitive Magic and wanted something to sort of relax with. And Commander at EDH back then, Commander today is a relaxing format. And it's like a British game show. The points don't matter. As long as everybody's having fun, that's what matters. Mm-hmm. And that is my favorite part. I don't care who won the game. I care if something epic happened. And if that epic thing was blowing me out, that's fine with me, because we all had a good time. We all had a great laugh. We all had some fun. That's the heart and soul of the Commander format.
Yeah. I think me and Matthias will agree 100% with you. We have seen how the format has grown into its own subsegment, the competitive EDH, which we also, we appreciate that segment, because obviously there's going to be a part of the community that wants to, optimize up to 100, and that's completely fine. That's also, I think, part of the DNA of the format, right?
Yeah. As long as the people who are sitting at the table together agree on what they're doing, I think everything is fine. Mm-hmm. If you want to play combo out, see who can combo out by turn 3, or see who finally lasts on turn 33, it doesn't matter, right? As long as the four of you are in agreement, then everything's great.
Right.
That's true. La siguiente pregunta es, ¿cuáles son los objetivos y misiones actuales del RC?
Okay. So this is a bit like a company statement. So what are the missions and the objectives of the Rules Committee right now? Not when it first was founded, but at this very moment.
Well, it's actually quite similar. There's a philosophy document on the website, that's mtgcommander.net, but it is about creating the resonant experience. It's about caring about what happens to the other people you sit down with. The important part of the philosophy is that it's not just about your fun; it's about everybody's fun. And now, again, if all four of you have fun by making sure that nobody else has fun, great. But if, for the most part, the format that we encourage, that we keep repeating the message of is, think about the enjoyment of the other players in the game as well. So it's part of your responsibility as a Commander player to think about the other people that you're going to play Commander with.
Right. I mean, much more empathy than the rest of the formats. I think that's the key differentiator.
Yeah, exactly.
Para la siguiente pregunta, yo sé que tienes una historia para contestar esta pregunta, porque me lo dijiste la otra vez, y la pregunta es, ¿cuándo y cómo te diste cuenta que Commander se había transformado en algo más que un simple formato de cocina?
Okay, so Matthias is asking, how and when did you realize that Commander was becoming a bigger thing, a bigger something than just your regular old kitchen top table format?
The point, the knee in the curve, as we say in English, was when I don't remember the date, but whatever the website that Scryfall used to be, magiccards.info, I think.
Yes. Yes,
When
Magic Card Info.
magiccards.info added Commander's color identity to the search function, then I knew that we were onto something. Then I knew that we were really onto something. Until then, I'm like, yeah, you know, we're the little format that could. And of course, the first moment is Wizards of the Coast making cards for us with 2011. But still, it was a sidelight to them, right? It was this little this fan format that had gained enough of a following to pay attention to, but it was never going to be their big thing. And fast forward to 2019, and the first morning of Command Fest, the first morning of the very first Command Fest, I showed up half an hour earlier, so before the hall opened. They let me in. I went into the hall, and kind of just like when I head judged the Pro Tour, I would always show up an hour earlier than everybody else. Like the crew, like the crew was there, but none of the judge staff was there. And I would do that so I could sit in the hall for an hour and just absorb the energy of the hall that I knew was going to be it was going to be a ship that I commanded for the next 3 or 4 days. So I had to I always wanted to get the sense of the room. So I kind of did that same thing with the first Command Fest. And I just went and sat in the room and tried to feel it. So then half an hour later or so, the doors open, the people come in. Some people come, I've got a little sign there so people know who I am. And we start playing some games. And about an hour later, we're still in the first game, and I have to stretch my legs. So I stand up, and I look around the hall. And in this hall, at this moment, are more people playing Commander together than I would have expected were ever going to be playing the format all across the world. Right, the 1,000 or 1,500 people that were in that room right then represented more people than I ever thought would play Commander. And I have to, I got to tell you, it was a pretty good feeling.
Nice. It's very nice story.
I bet it was. Was this during a Magic Fest? Was this during where was it?
That was in Seattle. That was the first Command Fest in Seattle. Okay. So that was November last year, right? One in Seattle and one Chicago on the same day, and then one in DC in December.
Yeah, and one in Las Vegas as well, right?
No, it wasn't a Command Fest. That was a Magic Fest. That was a Magic Fest.
It was a Magic Fest with a command zone.
With a command zone. Yeah, I think the first command zone was actually at Star City Games ran Grand Prix Atlanta in 2015.
No.
And I, since I was back in school, I hadn't been to an event since the first giant GP Las Vegas in 2013. And they said, well, come down to Atlanta, or come up to Atlanta. It's very short flights for me. So I said, sure, I'll come spend the weekend. And they had a place sectioned off, and it was called the Command Zone. And I think that was the actual first. It was me. The guests were me, Benny Smith, Mark Purvis, Danny West. Yeah, I think that was the 4 of us.
Nice.
So we were the 4 people that were playing with, the 25 people that bought the extra ticket.
Yeah, right.
Sheldon, siguiente pregunta. ¿Cómo nace la idea de crear el CAC y ha tenido el impacto y rendimiento esperados?
Okay, the question is, where does the idea of forming the CAG come from? And has it had the expected impact or the efficiency that you expected? If not, can it be improved? Do you see a way to improve the functionality of the CAG?
So the CAG was an idea that came to me, that popped into my head when Scott and Toby were visiting me in December of 2018. The two of them, these are the kind of friends that magic makes you. Scott and Toby came to my house. Scott from Seattle, Toby from Boston, came to my house to take care of me while I was going through radiation treatment, so that my wife could go back to work. So they put their lives on hold for a minute to come take care of me. And, well, 3 of the 4 of us were there. So we're like, well, let's just Skype Gavin in and we'll have a meeting. And before the meeting, I said, hey, let me float an idea to the 2 of you. So one of the problems historically with the RC has been that people have seen us as distant, that we're very much in this ivory tower group that's disconnected from the fan base of Commander. And I don't think we did we didn't do enough to get rid of that idea. Like, I don't think it was necessarily the case, but I don't think we also were very good at selling the idea that we weren't disconnected, because we were all traveling to events, we were all still highly invested in Magic, so we were still getting to the people. But really it was, so what do you think about forming an advisory group of, I don't know, 6 or 8 people who are highly connected in the community, so that we can expand our reach, get both our message out and feedback in, so that we have more of our fingers on the pulse of the format. And the 2 of them looked at me and said, why haven't we thought of this before? So that's why you saw the first group of people that we picked for the CAG were content creators, were people, yes, were people like Josh Lee Kwai, like Rachel Agnes, like Beitag, people who had reached out into the community, so that again, that those lines of communication could be farther opened. I think the answer to the first part of your question, it worked way better than even I had ever dreamed it would. The 6 people, 7 when we added Olivia late last year, are some of the smartest Magic people around. Ron Foster had to leave us because of his job, so we're back to 6. But the just new perspectives, and the one thing about the CAG is that it's not a committee. We don't ask them for 1 opinion. We ask them for 6 opinions. They're 6 very smart people, and we don't want their consensus on anything. We want to know what each of them think individually. And they're all highly invested Commander people, but they're on very different spectrums of their involvement. Rachel is probably our most competitive player, where Shivam is the king of all casuals. So we have and want more perspective than our own, because we already have, on the RC, the privileged straight white dude vote is pretty well solidified. Mm. We know what our demographic thinks. Now we need it from other demographics. Right. And the follow-on answer to how could it improve is get CAG representation from more than North America. Right? 5 of the 6 people live in North America. Charlotte's the only one that lives in Europe. She lives in Finland.
Yes.
Although she's Canadian.
Yeah.
But with Ron, we had an in to the Asian market. So I would love in the future to see Latin American, European, Eastern representation on the CAG. Right. That those are the perspectives that we want and we need. And again, we need people that don't look like me and Scott and Toby again. We need diversity, both diversity of demographic and diversity of voice.
Okay, that was our next question. So you go ahead with that.
You go ahead with it.
Yeah.
Exactly. Right.
Yeah. like a little parenthesis, we have in as a guest in a few more weeks, Shivam.
Right? Yeah, Shivam, he loves everything, right? I've never seen a person more excited about the stuff in life than Shivam. Whether it's playing his soldier's deck or baking bread, Shivam loves it.
Yeah, he's going to be our next guest, and I really like his podcast because he talks about other things than rather than magic, and he
Right.
like make links with things that I really interest in because I am a human rights lawyer, so I have like affinity with him with some things that he talks about.
Right.
We're going to pass to the third part of the interview. Hablaremos un poco sobre las dinámicas entre la RC y Wizard of the Coast. Nosotros, Vicente, voy a decir una cosa para que después se lo diga ahí en inglés. Nosotros en Landfall sabemos que la RC se toma el tiempo de escuchar a la comunidad cuando hay asuntos complicados. Yo en lo personal comencé mi relación contigo, Sheldon, a conversar cuando se dio el tema del ban de Paradox Engine y también conversamos bastante ahora respecto al Secret Lair de Walking Dead. Y primero queríamos felicitarte a ti y al resto de la RC de tomarse sus tiempos y queríamos ahondar un poco en ciertos temas que a la comunidad latina le inquietan y nos pidieron que te consultáramos.
Oops,
Secret
my
Lair.
bad. My bad. My audio went out. Um, but did you hear me, Sheldon?
Say it again. I missed the last thing you said.
Yeah, we're going to backtrack a bit. So Matthias was reminiscing about how he spoke with you about the banning of Paradox Engine,
Right.
about the drama about the Secret Lair of the Walking Dead.
Mhm.
He wanted to congratulate you and the rest of the RC for taking your time to discuss and to hear the input of the entire community in the Discord. I think it was right. And now Facebook, etc., and Twitter. Now we would like to get into some topics that some of the members of our community are a bit intrigued about, or are a bit restless about.
Okay.
So, Matías, anda nomás, pregunta número 10.
Bueno, sabemos que la RC es un ente aparte, independiente de Wizard, pero por el otro lado, Wizard son los dueños del producto. ¿Es muy difícil mantener la independencia? ¿Ha habido intentos formales de Wizard de adquirir la RC?
Okay, so the question is that we know that Wizards of the Coast and the RC work both independently of each other, but has the Wizards as the owner of the game, is it hard to remain independent from them about taking ownership of the format?
No, because I think that independent isn't the right term. I think interdependent is a better term. We're not independent, them here and us here. We're interdependent together. We maintain our separate natures and motivations, but we have to work together, right? They're interested in Magic and Commander being great. We're interested in Magic and Commander being great. We have two different ways of trying to do it, but I think the thing that people don't see is that we're not just this body that's way off in the distance. We're very much, again, Toby and I were level 5 judges. Scott was the Pro Tour manager. We have connection with a lot of people inside Wizards of the Coast. Scott still works there. I work there. It's nice. And Aaron Forsyth tweeted sometime early in the year, I think maybe late last year, that he was very happy that the RC ran Commander differently than Wizards of the Coast would.
Nice.
And it's because of that we understand how to work with them, not against them, but maintain the vision that we have for the format They'd probably do it differently. Quite honestly, I'm willing to bet if we handed the ball back to them in 3 years or so, Commander would be a competitive format.
Yeah, that could be a possibility actually. And
And
about those fears, has there been any attempts by Wizards to take over the RC? Like, no, right?
No, not at all. And again, when one of the vice presidents is telling you that he appreciates the way you're doing it, you listen, right? They don't. I mean, it's good for them because if anything controversial happens internally to the format, we get to take the heat instead of them, right? And quite honestly, we do the work so they don't have to have additional people doing the work. Having worked inside R&D, I can tell you that everybody there is exceptional and smart and creative and loves Magic. And adding another thing like running a format to their plates would be too much.
Nice.
Yeah, that makes sense actually.
That makes sense, yes. The next question is made by Chris from Mexico. That is one of our first columnists outside Chile, like 3 or 4 years ago. And he has this question that I want to make to you, is ¿por qué la RC ha sido tan tajante en que los Planeswalkers no sean utilizados como comandantes?
So the question is, why is the RC so reluctant to allow Planeswalkers as a commander? Like in the general terms.
Because for the first part, we have to ban too many of them.
Okay.
And two, they would change the nature of the format too much. We don't want a particularly fast game for Commander. We want those 9-10 turn games to be the sort of baseline. But adding Planeswalkers as commanders, first of all, they were never designed to be commanders, except the ones that say on them, may be your commander. So they didn't pass the test that legendary creatures have to pass in order to make it, right? Today, every expansion is a commander set. Every card they make, every card they make is a commander card.
Right. And
Planeswalkers don't pass the same sort of hurdles that legendary creatures have to. So they would radically change the nature of the format in a direction that we'd rather it not go.
I understand.
I like to add to that. If have you heard about the Oathbreaker community? I know that in Chile, at least, Oathbreaker kind of peaked a bit during War of the Spark, and now we have nothing. Like I don't know.
Yeah, the Oathbreakers folks told me what they were doing before they did it. As a matter of fact.
Oh, nice. Yes. Pregunta. Wizard of the Coast anunció este año que es el año de Commander. ¿Estás contento con esto? ¿Te gusta la cantidad de productos que han aparecido para Commander?
So Wizards declared last year that the 2020 was going to be the year of Commander, and they still have said so. And how do you take that announcement? How did it make you feel about that statement? And what do you think about the amount of the variety of products that the Commander players have gotten this year?
Well, I think COVID has, a global pandemic has gotten in the way of the year of Commander, because Commander being an inherently social format, there were going to be a lot of times when 2,000 of us got together or 3,000 of us got together someplace to play Commander together, and obviously in 2020 that couldn't happen. It might not even happen in 2021, for all I know. So back to the original part, when they told me I was there in the office when they told me that 2020 was going to be the year of Commander. And as you can imagine, it filled me with a pretty intense feeling of pride, right? That we had done something that people had hinted up until that time that Commander was the most popular format in Magic. Now, there's no doubt about it. Commander is the most popular way to play Magic in the game's history. So, as you can imagine, that feels pretty good.
Yeah, I think we can relate to that a little bit.
Okay. Sabemos que el dolor de cabeza que ha sido el Secret Lair de The Walking Dead. Leyendo la declaración de la RC, pudimos observar que identificaron los mismos problemas que la gran mayoría ve en el producto. La forma en cómo se distribuye y también que son cartas nuevas y legales. Finalmente decidieron no banear estas cartas. Nos gustaría saber si podrías ahondar un poco en la decisión de la RC, cómo fue la discusión dentro de la RC y si hubo gente dentro de la RC con la idea de banear estas cartas.
Okay, so to the most recent topic, we know that the Walking Dead cards have been a bit of a headache the last couple of weeks, and we read the rules committee final statement, which we saw that you identified the same main problems that pretty much everybody else spoke about. About the limited distribution, about the brand and new cards in black border, and at the end of all, the RC didn't decided to not ban the cards because they didn't feel that it would make a harm to the format. So we wanted to know how was the decision making process within the RC. Was it unanimous? Were there, great discussions? Did you guys brought your own crossbows and try to shoot each other or something? How was it?
It was a very intense 72 hours. That we had a lot of discussion and we argued. One of the things we do with each other is argue. We sort of take both the point that we want to support and we take the opposition to that point and argue it as well. We don't just go in and argue our own point. Right? We sort of do the opposition research, if you will. So we talk. Okay, what's the side of the argument that that somebody's on this side, and what's the side of the argument that somebody's on that side? So we had a great deal of discussion. Again, it was a very intense 72 hours. I'm sure that from the time I first started putting the words together that went on that statement on Friday, Toby and Scott, and Gavin unfortunately was working. Toby and Scott and I probably put 10 man hours into writing that document.
Oh.
Like that, so I wrote an outline, then sort of put some flesh on the skeleton of the outline, then gave it to Toby and Scott, and they hacked at it a little bit and did this, and it's like, I'll move this here and so forth and so on. And then we got back together and we sort of wordsmithed it together and asked ourselves, is this saying the thing that we wanted to say? And so eventually we did, on Friday morning, we said what we wanted to say. We're not necessarily happy that, like, in the second paragraph it says, this is not an endorsement of this product.
Right.
We understand that these are the problems. I understand personally what the problems are. Believe me, Wizards of the Coast wants to sell Secret Lair to everybody around the world. Right? There's nobody sitting at Wizards of the Coast saying, we hate Brazil, we're not going to sell them. Right?
Yeah, that doesn't make any sense.
They want to tap into all the possible markets of Magic as well as they can. Unfortunately, there are international trade agreements or national distribution issues that prevent something from happening right now. One of the big parts of our conversation with them was we understand what's happening right now. We understand why certain countries can't get Secret Lair. We want you to do something about that. And the voice of the community, we brought the voice of the community, the very displeased voice of the community to them, right? And, I may have sworn at somebody at some point.
Wow.
I won't confirm nor deny if I used colorful language. We want our friends, we on the RC, want our friends all around the world to be able to have all the Magic products that they want. We also understand that Wizards of the Coast distribution issues, Wizards of the Coast business practices aren't ours to solve. And I believe in playing the long game, if you will. I believe in getting to the goal you want to get to. And if the thing that you wanted to get to was feeling good about taking a provocative action, then banning the Walking Dead cards was probably the right thing to do.
Right.
If you wanted to actually get those cards distributed to all the people who want them, taking the provocative action was not the way to solve it. Mm-hmm. And I think that maintaining high quality discussion, levels of communication, and debate between, discussion between two parties that care very much about both the game and the people who play the game was the way to go here. We want things to be better for you, and banning the cards was not the way to do that.
Okay, perfect. That's nice. I have an additional question about that. Is have the RC think about what to do if they do a new secret lair, but this time with cards that may really impact the format, either because they overpower, or because acts as functional copies of the staples.
If they print a bannable card in the next core set, or they print a bannable card in the next secret lair, it's getting banned.
Okay.
That's I don't want to talk about too many hypotheticals, but
right.
Yeah, of course.
If they print flash, only it costs 1 blue instead of 2 blue and 1, it's getting banned.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. How about for example the functional reprints? Like I don't know if you saw the meme of the atomic ring, which was a functional soul ring about the Big Bang Theory.
Yeah. I haven't seen that.
Yeah. What do you think about that possibility?
I think if they're functional reprints, especially if they're legendary creatures, that we will work with them to word Oracle so that you can still only play one copy of those.
Okay, that's nice.
So if Rick gets reprinted into Squee Goblin the Bob Part 2,
right?
Then we're going to count those as one printing of a card. So you couldn't play it as your commander and in the 99.
Perfect.
Like acting like they were the dinosaurs and the legendary creatures from Arconia, exactly. Right?
Yep.
Right. Well, not dinosaurs, whatever. The big bad monsters.
Godzilla.
Right, Godzilla. Siguiente noticia.
Sí. Si comienzan a salir muchos productos similares a este Secret Lair y esto transforma el ambiente de la comunidad en algo tóxico o poco sano, a pesar de que las cartas no sean tan poderosas, ¿podrían cambiar de opinión respecto a banear esos nuevos Secret Lairs?
Does tóxico mean what I think it means?
Tóxico is toxic, yes.
Toxic, yeah. So no, the question is a bit like a follow-up, but I think I'll modify it a bit because the question is. Let's pretend that in the future many products similar to The Walking Dead starts to release with the same constraints, limited distribution. There are brand new cards with limited accessibility, and it's not about them being overpowered. It's about maybe the reaction from the community starts becoming more and more toxic over time, and so if you see the community, I mean the environment starts becoming more degraded. How do you think will be your discussion process in that hypothetical?
I'll tell you about the real thing right now. Is that I feel like there has been a division in the community, and I don't want that to happen more. I want that to happen less, and I want us to be able to heal that division, not drive a further wedge into it. So however we can make that happen, we're going to do our best. We're going to do our best to make sure that this never happens again. And again, that's when I may have used colorful language with someone. That was what I used it about. Was this this can't happen? Like we don't want not that if the RC could sort of take some of the punches to quell the community's rage a little bit, fine. I don't want it to happen for us. I don't want it to happen for us broadly as a community, because it did on Friday especially. It was pretty bad. Saturday started okay, then dipped a little bit, but by Sunday most of the comments were positive. So I think it had settled in. The people who were just really super angry, got that out of their system. I believe there's still plenty to be upset about, but again, you solve it intelligently. You don't just fly off into a rage and try to solve it, because it's never going to be the answer. But we've already secured promise that they're going to work a little more closely with us on future releases, so that something like this might not happen again. Right.
Yeah, and we ask these questions, but we also understand that with your position and the position of the RC, these are not necessarily easy choices, and probably any choice, any decision that you guys would release will divide some part of the community. So actually, to be able to come up with this decision that keeps most of the community happy or more healthy, that's an achievement on itself.
Yeah, healthy is the right word there. I understand. I understand that people are going to be unhappy, but again, long term, you got to think long term. Think big picture. Always think about the health of the format. Not about one issue, not about a smaller issue, but how does it impact the whole of the format? And we want to keep everything healthy, and I think that being better involved in the process going forward might enable us to do that.
Right.
Help do that.
Nice. I'm going to read two questions of the chat. The first one is, did Wizard tell you about the Walking Dead Secret Lair before announcing to the public? And the second one is, do you like the possibility of have Commander in Arena?
Yes, I saw the Walking Dead cards when I was there a year ago. Like I said, they showed me the cards in their current form. I don't necessarily remember the form at the time. But they showed me the cards, and I was like, okay, none of these are broken. There are no commander warning signs going off here, right? I think I remember Rick being a little stronger. I mean, a little weaker than it currently is, but it's a very vague memory. I can't 100% tap into it. And I didn't make notes on exactly what the cards did. I looked at them, and I answered the question that they asked. What do you think of these cards, Commander? They told me what they were doing, but the ground truth was the cards themselves are fine. Again, Rick is good. Rick is pretty strong, but otherwise they're not format warping. They're not going to. I don't think they threaten the health of the format based on their mechanics.
Yeah, I think we agree, actually.
And what was the second part of the question?
Commander in Arena. How do you feel about it?
If more people are playing Commander, more power to them. I'm excited. I'm excited if more people can enjoy Commander together. I mean, one of my issues about online is that you don't have the same interpersonal feedback loop that you have when you're playing via webcam games or in person, right? You and I, we all know that people online can engage in worse behavior than people who are sitting face to face.
Indeed.
It's easy to not care about somebody who's basically nothing more than zeros and ones to you, as opposed to being a real person.
That's true.
If I were to have a concern, it would be that. But if Commander comes to Arena, great.
Yep, I think we agree on that.
Una siguiente pregunta. De todas las decisiones que ha tomado el RC, la única que yo personalmente no estuve muy de acuerdo fue con el cambio de regla que se realizó para que Companion fuera una mecánica legal en Commander. ¿Podrías ahondar un poco en qué motivó esta decisión y el cambio de regla?
So Matthias has a personal question here. He asks that among all the decisions that the RC have taken lately, the only decision that he finds it hard to agree with is the decision to allow the companion mechanic to be legal in Commander. I think he's referring to the fact that companion only happens with a sideboard, and there was supposed to be a rule about there not being a sideboard anywhere in Commander. Can you please go a bit deeper in what motivated that decision?
Sure. Well, the first thing is that you don't need a sideboard to play outside the game cards. Sideboards are just an artifact of tournament magic, and that's where in a tournament setting, that's where outside the game cards sit. You don't. It's not that sideboard exists so that there can be outside the game cards. Mm-hmm. It's that sideboards exist so in a tournament setting, you know how to deal with outside the game cards. So people say, well, Companion can't work because there are no sideboards in Commander. That doesn't, that argument doesn't make any sense, okay. Right? It's not because of sideboards. There's no because of sideboards. And again, this is a mechanic that I saw more than a year ago, and we talked about it, and we worked with the rules manager. Toby and I worked with the rules manager for many months, even after I left, on getting Commander to work. Getting Companion to work. Mm-hmm. Why did we do so much work to get it to function? Mm-hmm. Because we thought that the idea was cool, right? Mm-hmm. It's kind of a cool idea, especially if you put the restrictions on it. That your deck has to be built a certain way and so forth, so on. That it's not just easy. Obviously, everyone's favorite Otter suffered from his his condition not being a condition in Commander.
Yeah, right? Of course.
So the whole thing was, we thought Companion was mechanically a kind of a cool idea, and we wanted to explore the possibilities of making it work. And eventually we came up with the fact that game cards that reference outside the game cards can only bring themselves in. And that solves quite a few problems with Wishes and Karn and Sponsor Ulamog and stuff like that. So, and it also, if there are ever future cards that reference outside the game, it also solves a problem with them. Right? So, yes. We did some mechanical work. If I have to be honest, if I 100% had my way, I think the Companion would be one of the 100 and not the 101st.
Okay.
But that was a very small thing to give away in order to get what we thought would be a kind of cool payoff for this unique mechanic.
Right.
Yeah, I understand.
That's actually a good piece of information, because we discussed this in great length back when it happened, the decision. But I think I never thought about the idea that the sideboard was only something that was happening in tournament setting to differentiate it from the outside something, right? So your sideboard is something that is legal in a competitive setting, and to differentiate it from your folders or your binders, for instance,
exactly.
right? And in Commander, since that's not a competitive setting, the outside, the sideboard is your folder.
There is no sideboard. Right.
There is no sideboard, right?
You mentioned Lutri, specifically Lutri and other legends that had been banned. Have you considered in coming back to the banned as Commander list and all of those cards in the 99 cards?
Sure. Certainly, it's been a topic of conversation that the community engages in every now and again. We haven't had any serious discussion of actually bringing it back. Mostly because when you make rules for a format, you don't make rules for the corner cases.
Yeah.
You don't make rules for 4 or 5 cards.
Right.
You make rules for the bigger picture.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the main problems with Bandits Commander, people say, well, you took it away because you think that Magic players are too stupid to understand. That's not the case at all. Magic players are very smart. Magic players can grasp the idea of Bandits Commander.
Mm-hmm.
What's the difficult part is the messaging part. Is we want to keep things as simple as possible. The reason that Bandit as Commander doesn't exist is the same reason that a point system doesn't exist.
Mm-hmm.
Simplicity.
Right.
Occam's razor here is a thing that we want to slide down.
Mm-hmm.
And the whole idea of making a big rule for essentially what are 3 or 4 cards right now.
Didn't make much sense.
You don't want to do it. Now, if there were, I don't know where the number is, but there's obviously a number, right? If there were 30 cards that would either be on the ban list or banned as Commander, then maybe we think about it. Like I said, I'm not sure. I'm not sure where that number would be. If you were to put a gun to my head, I would say we don't negotiate with terrorists.
That's a good one.
Hey, next question.
Pregúntame nueva, Matías.
Sí, respecto al CDH y el EDH, hay gente que plantea que son formatos distintos. ¿Qué piensas sobre esto? ¿Y han discutido la idea que se ha planteado en ciertos foros de tener listas de baneo distintas entre EDH y CDH?
So this is, I think, a recurring topic. So we spoke about how Commander allows for a multitude of options, and CEDH is one of them. We love Commander as a casual format, but there are players that love to compete, obviously. And this difference in points of view has led to make a distinction between EDH and CEDH. And different parts of both communities have suggested in some forums, in the discourse, right, that maybe both formats should be separated and have their own rules, or maybe their own different ban list. What do you think about it? And has this been discussed within the RC?
Certainly, again, we discuss things when somebody asks the question, has this been discussed in the RC?
Mm-hmm.
It means one of 2 different things. Has the RC discussed it amongst themselves as a serious topic, or has the RC understood that the community is talking about this?
No.
Right? So
right.
I think you have to
Clarify.
differentiate between that question.
Right.
We have never seriously considered splitting off a CDH format. One of the main issues is it doesn't do anything.
Mm-hmm.
If there's a CDH ban list and a regular EDH ban list, regular Commander ban list, nothing would prevent a person from bringing a CDH list to a regular Commander event. Right? So in that, who is it helping? And the answer seems to be not very many people.
Yeah.
If somebody wants to form a splinter group and go off and make their own CDH ban list, buona fortuna.
Right.
Right.
Which has happened with tiny leaders, dual commander, oathbreaker. Yep. I mean, and I think that's a view that I personally hold as well. CDH doesn't need its own. Right. It doesn't need to be divided, like you say.
I want more people together in the community, not apart. And right. People are like, oh, you hate CDH. I don't hate CDH. Again, I know a thing or two about competitive Magic, right. And
right.
What I found is that the friends that play the high-powered end of the format are just as passionate about that end as the super casuals are about their end. And when I went on CDH Brazil and played with them, we had fun. We had a great time, right? I built an Agila deck. I played it. I got my blood, and And that was that. I played with some folks at a SCG Con. Somebody loaned me a deck. And matter of fact, it was an Gila deck. Now that I think about it, you can have fun playing either end of the format or in the middle. Again, It's mixing the streams that's really the issue. So splintering the format has never been a serious concern with us, and it's not going to be.
That makes sense. In any case, in the event that you do split the format, what's only going to happen is that one format is going to have a very casual end of gameplay and a very competitive one, and CEDH is going to have its own casual CEDH, which is going to be like the competitive EDH.
Right, and some people take issue with the word competitive. They say, if you're playing high-powered CDH, if you're playing turn 3 kill CDH, it's competitive even if you're drinking beer while you're doing it. If you're playing it in Spike Feeder Jim's basement and having a beer, it still has enough in common with tournament Magic to be wary of it on in that regard. Yes, it's casual. There's nothing on the line besides fun. Right, there are no. The only stakes in a Commander game are the stakes of the enjoyment of the people that you're playing with.
Exactly.
And those are the ones we want to focus on that. And I think that forming a the sort of sub community that goes off on their own is an invitation to have them wither, as opposed to stay afloat with the high tide of the entire community.
That's a great answer, I think.
Vamos a pasar a mi parte favorita, que es la filosofía de Commander. We're going to change subject, Sheldon. I'm going to talk about my favorite thing about Commander. And all my columns are from this topic, that is the philosophy of the Commander. En tus palabras, ¿qué es la filosofía de Commander?
Yeah. So, first question. In your own words, what do you consider the Commander philosophy to be?
The words on the website are my words. So
okay.
Okay.
That's a short answer. So.
It's really it's about the resonant experience. It's about the communal experience of everybody having fun at the same time.
Right. Para que sepan, chicos, si quieren saber la filosofía de Commander, vayan al sitio mtgcommander.net. Sheldon dice que sus palabras, ahí, las palabras de la filosofía son sus palabras, así que eso responde de inmediato a la pregunta.
Ok, siguiente pregunta. ¿Es para ti la filosofía del formato su aspecto más importante?
So, is this philosophy in the format, is that what you consider its most important aspect?
Absolutely. The hard edges of the rules, 100 card decks, 21 commander damage, those are just rules. Those are sort of the box that we put things in. The philosophy is the spirit of it, and it's wide and all-encompassing, and it brings in, and instead of, it sort of makes things limitless as opposed to limiting them. So yeah, the philosophy is, to me, way more important than the rule set. Which is why when somebody said, well, somebody asked, did you create Commander? I think the answer is yes, even though I didn't make the first rules, like, the 100 card deck, the color, what's a color identity back then, but you could only have cards of your color, so forth and so on. Those were rules.
Right.
But a set of rules is not a format.
No.
I think you have to bring something else to a format. And
the intention.
Commander is the only format that has a philosophy.
That's true.
And so we're different, and I think that difference has resonated with enough people around the globe.
It certainly has.
Es evidente que la filosofía es un trabajo bastante pensado, con un fondo mucho más amplio de lo que se lee. ¿Dispone de una base teórica para ir evolucionando o simplemente responde a lo que ocurre en el formato?
So, reading the words, Sheldon, we think that it's evident that the philosophy is a deep work and it's wider than what can be seen on the surface. Is there any theoretical basis applied to the philosophy, or is it just something that's about monitoring its evolution? Does it simply answer to what occurs in the format at a given time?
Well, I mean, the philosophy, how we articulate the philosophy may change, right? It's the words themselves may be different than they were in 2009.
Mm-hmm.
Or whatever, or whenever. And in 2025 or 2030, the words will probably be different again, but the underlying truth will be exactly the same, right? I'm willing to bet if you read the philosophy document, there are a number of phrases and words that are bold on the webpage,
right?
And that's done intentionally. And I think the spirit of those words is what's going to carry on. Whether we change the layout of the document or not, I think the underlying truth, however we articulate it, is going to be the same. And I think that's the big key to the success of Commander as a format. It was us resisting people telling us all along, well, you need to make this more like other Magic formats.
Right.
And I think we've seen evidence that the answer that we gave was the right answer. No, we need to make it like itself. Commander will be the best it can be on its own terms.
A great line.
Yeah, it's a very great line. ¿Crees que la filosofía del formato se ha ido perdiendo? ¿Crees que se debería hacer algo para reforzarla?
Do you think that the philosophy maybe gets lost in translation? Maybe people, the new players or even the old players, they don't read the philosophy and get in touch with that. Maybe is there something that can be done to reinforce the philosophy into the gameplay?
Well, I noticed when we were still on the old website and had the forums, and we released the updated philosophy document. What was that? A year and a half ago, 2 years ago. Time has no meaning right now. I don't.
Indeed.
I don't know when we are.
Right. Back in 2000 years ago when
we were
free in the before times.
I noticed that it was the update in which we banned Paradox Engine. So we banned Paradox Engine and redid the philosophy document at the same time. And I noticed at the time that 4 times as many people read the banned list thread than read the philosophy thread. So there are definitely some players that only care about the box.
Right.
Right. I don't want to try to force them into anything. I want everybody to enjoy the format the way they do. Again, as long as they're enjoying it with people
right.
who are consenting to the same kind of enjoyment that they're having. I think one of the issues is, outside of North America, opportunities to play eternal formats like Vintage and Legacy are way lower. So there just aren't as many organized Vintage and Legacy events per capita in Latin America or in Europe or in Asia that there are in North America. So what happens is the people that hunger for those formats will matriculate into the only format that they can play. And there are plenty of people playing Commander. So those, the Vintage and Legacy players are going to, without anything else, without another format to play, are going to find that there are Vintage and Legacy playable cards in Commander and come, which means they're going to bring a different kind of philosophy, right? Vintage and Legacy are competitive formats, are tournament formats. So they're going to bring some of that mindset, which is why I think that we see around the world, we see that there are a lot of people who don't quite grasp the philosophy, because the first part that they've come to isn't the philosophy. The first part they've come to are the hard edges, are the rules.
Right.
So I think what we can do about that is translate the philosophy document into other languages. We have some help with doing that into both Spanish and French right now.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not actually. I have to ask what the status of that project is. So, if I would love for more people outside of North America to understand the philosophy, and perhaps it is that some of it is lost in translation.
Perfecto.
That's true. Siguiente pregunta. ¿La lista de baneos vista desde la regla 0 es obligatoria o las comunidades pueden desbanear ciertas cartas?
Yeah. So about the ban list, because now we went from the philosophy now to the rules about the ban list. Seeing that from the rule 0, would that be a mandatory list, or do you feel that any community can just disband any card at any moment? How do you see that?
The big thing is here, you're never going to hear anybody on the RC lean into rule 0 as an excuse for a rule that we make. We're going to make the rules that we think are the best rules. So I often like to say that rule 0 isn't the engine. A lot of people think that rule 0 is the engine. Rule 0 is not the engine. Rule 0 is the ejector seat, right? Rule 0 is for when the other rules, the hard and fast rules, don't work for your group. Rule 0 is not a cudgel to beat other people over the head with. It's not an excuse for bad behavior. It's just a way. To some extent, you don't really need rule 0, because the people who are going to use rule 0, we're going to do it whether we articulated it or not. Right? They would go, no, this is dumb. I want commander damage to be 30, and their group is going to play that way. Or we love otters. We're playing Lutri.
Everybody plays Lutri.
Right. So rule 0 is recognition that the group of people who are playing the format are the ones who are more likely to care about there being rule 0 in the first place. So there's this giant paradox that the people that it's meant for are the ones that don't need it.
Perfect. There is an article that you wrote that is called Rule 0, what it is and what is not. I'm going to put the link in the chat for everybody to see that article. It's a very good article.
Thank you.
Yes, about that. Llegando al final, vamos a pasar a la parte 5 sobre Latinoamérica. Y la pregunta es, ¿has tenido la posibilidad de visitar Latinoamérica?
Okay, so we're in the end game now. About Latin America. So, have you ever visited any country in Latin America?
I'm trying to think if I've been in an airport. I have not visited any country in Latin America yet. I was trying to think if I'd been through an airport, but I don't think I have. As a matter of fact, I'm trying to think where I've been in the southern hemisphere.
Australia.
I haven't been to Australia. The worlds that was in Australia that was in 2002. I was deployed to Saudi Arabia. So
Mexico, maybe, like the neighbor.
yeah. I mean, but yeah. I guess Mexico. I have been to Mexico.
Okay, perfect. Because we have writers and people that help us in Landfall in Mexico. They are part of Latin America as well. We play with them with Spell Table, and they have a very big voice actually within Landfall.
¿Has tenido la posibilidad de jugar con latinoamericanos? ¿Pudiste notar si vivían el juego de alguna forma distinta?
Have you had the chance to play with any people from Latin America? And if so, did you notice any significant change? My bad. In how they play the game, how they interact with the game?
Well, again, I had a chance to play with with CDH Brazil, and on their Twitch stream, and I paid attention to as much of the chat as I could trying to translate Portuguese through Italian into English, which I've been trying to do. I've been listening to Matthias the whole time, and I'm trying to get from his Spanish to the Italian that I know into English, but I can't do it fast enough. The people that I played with, the Latin Americans that I have played with, have been so passionate about the game. I'm not telling you anything you don't know here.
No.
Right.
Yeah.
And that passion is infectious.
Mm-hmm.
You will catch that kind of energy. You can't play. There is no way I could come away from that experience with the CDH Brazil folks and not have an adrenaline rush and be aware that I just spent 2 hours playing a game with some wonderful people who were having a great time, right? And that's I think that's the spirit that everybody that I know from Latin America that I played with has brought that, whether it's a South American judge or a Mexican judge or somebody that I know, friend of a friend, has brought that same kind of spirit. It's all the way, all the time.
Perfect.
Vicente, antes, we have 2 more questions. The first one is in the chat, and is, what does Sheldon thinks about the reserve list?
Aha. It's fine.
Well, lawyers.
Well,
that's what I'm going to say about the reserve list.
Okay.
That's fine.
That's fine.
¿Otra pregunta del chat?
What do you think about the Commander Legends leak?
I wasn't aware there was a leak.
Yeah, there is a big leak right now.
When did that happen?
Meanwhile we were talking.
Oh.
Damn it. We're going to distract the conversation. I think we can return it to the concept. What do you think about leaks?
Yeah. So yeah, I wasn't aware of any leaks in general are bad, right? I think leaks often they're not right. We've certainly seen evidence of that, and they just sort of damage the excitement that builds. The preview season of any Magic set is an exciting time to me, and you're slowly peeling away the layers of the thing that you're going to discover.
Right.
You don't sit down to a good meal or a great glass of wine and jam it all in your face at the same time, right? You eat it.
You want to enjoy it.
You want to savor it. You want to enjoy it. And to me, preview season is like a seduction, and it's a very slow seduction, getting me interested in what's going to be a very big payoff in the end. So I think leaks kind of damage that for me. But I try not to pay attention to them. I won't talk about them at all. Like if somebody says, "Well, this card was leaked," it's like my first question to them is, "Has it been officially previewed?" And if the answer is no, then my response is, "Well, then I'm not going to talk about it." We don't also on the RC Discord server, we don't allow discussion of leaks. Like we shut that down right away.
Okay, perfect. So Sheldon, I'm going to ask the question both in Spanish and in English. So a muchas personas en Latinoamérica o gente que está empezando el formato, digamos, entra a una comunidad aleatoria, entra a una tienda, a un canal de Discord, y después la gente que lo recibe le dice en verdad que necesita esta carta, cartas caras, etcétera, como creando la ilusión un poco que tal vez Commander es como un formato para la élite. ¿Y qué le dirías tú, Sheldon, a ellos, a los que están recién empezando, para invitarlos al formato, como para hacerlo un poco más accesible? So the question is that talking about the new players into the format, that they hear about Commander. Maybe they enter a random community, something a local game store, or maybe a Discord server. And the people that already play Commander, they tell them, okay, well, but you need the staples, you need the Soul Ring, you need Command Tower, and maybe you need a Mana Crypt because of course you need a Mana Crypt, and on and on. Maybe creating the illusion that the format is maybe for the elite, for the people that have the power to consume. What would you say to them, to the new players, to invite them to the format, to tell them you can play the game anyway?
Don't let anybody, to include me, tell you how to enjoy Commander. That's what I want to tell them, right? Again, let your enjoyment be on your own terms, and if it's the highly competitive end, let it be that way. If it's the complete dirtle fest, let it be that way. You don't need one of the reasons that we want to keep the ban list small is to reinforce the message that you don't need certain cards to have fun playing Commander. Right. We've all had fun games of Commander that didn't involve Mana Crypt. We've all had fun games of Commander that didn't involve any number of cards that people want to ban. Play the cards that you love. The format. So many people will, when they get introduced to the format by a friend who hands them a deck, will start looking through the deck and go, "Oh, I can play this. Oh, I can play this. Oh, I can play this." That's what hooks them into the format. And I have to tell you that Sol Ring is that card. Since 2006, Sol Ring has been the card where people have seen it and go, "I can play Sol Ring." The only format that I can play Sol Ring. Not quite true, but it's the one that gets them in because they have that nostalgia over when they were younger and they could play it, and they see it and go, "Oh, this is cool." Or just random card from whatever era they got into Magic, whether they got into Magic during Odyssey Block or Shards of Alara or Innistrad. They know that they can play the cards that made them fall in love with Magic. And I think that for the new players to Commander, I say to them, play the cards that made you fall in love with Magic.
Perfect. That's a great question. So, okay, we're the last couple of questions. So one from the chat asked, what do you think about the future of the format? Will it be determined by the communities and the use of the Rule Zero? Or maybe do you fear, or maybe do you hope that Wizards will... we already asked you about a possible takeover. You said that's not going to happen, but do you think it will be defined by the communities, or do you think that maybe Wizards eventually, in a couple of years, might want to take a more control over the format and the metagame and how and where to play?
Well, for one thing, there is no such thing as a Commander metagame.
Indeed.
Right? There's no global Commander metagame. There's a standard metagame. There's a modern metagame. There's no such thing exists in Commander because people are enjoying it the way they want to enjoy it.
Right.
When people say that, they're talking about the high-powered end, right? But that is such a small percentage of the people who play the format that you can't actually call it the Commander
metagame, right?
Right. So that there aren't very many people reacting to the cards that other people are playing in such a fashion as they would in a tournament format. So what's the future? The future is, to me, stays sort of. Again, I strongly believe that the philosophy of Commander is eternal. The philosophy is the kind of thing that you can just continue on an unending timeline.
Right.
There's going to be a point where, and let's hope this is many decades from now, that I'm not around and Scott's not around and Toby's not around. Quite honestly, if the Commander RC looks in 3 years like the Commander RC looks today, I won't have done my job very well.
Right.
Because I believe it's the responsibility of leaders in all communities to replace themselves. And if I can do that, if I can render myself obsolete at a certain point, that would be the crowning jewel in my accomplishments.
Mm-hmm. Perfect. That's a
Perfect.
very noble answer, actually, to want to be replaced and to be succeeded by the community and keep it moving forward, right? So Sheldon, the question about the rule zero. We already linked the article that Matthias was talking about.
Mm-hmm.
We were wondering if you would allow us to translate the article and post it in our own site on mtglandfall.com.
In Spanish,
In
but
Spanish, of
linking
course.
the
Yeah, well, obviously.
linking the original.
Yep. I believe that's okay. I'll double check with Star City and make sure that that's okay. But I believe that as long as you're linking to the original and then translating, you're fine.
Okay,
Perfect.
thank you very much.
If it's not, I'll tell you.
Okay.
Matthias will know. He's a lawyer, so he'll make sure everything is made the right way.
Right.
And lastly, would you care to join us in a game in any Thursday evening, maybe same hours, for a game with spell table, commander game, any format, maybe casual, maybe competitive, however you like.
I would love to.
Mm-hmm.
One of the problems with that is Thursday night is the same night that the RC streams on our Twitch channel.
Perfect.
So maybe we have to at some point arrange a crossover event where
That's good.
two of us play on your stream,
mm-hmm.
two of you play on our stream, and we basically have, we have Command Fest Thursday.
Right. That would be excellent.
Really nice.
Yeah.
That will be excellent.
Yeah, but yes, let's talk about that and arrange that for the.
Okay, we'll talk about that.
Okay. Matías, creo que terminamos entonces, ¿no?
Sí, Sheldon, we're finished. We want to thank you very much for your time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's been my distinct pleasure. Thanks for having me.
No, thank you.
And thanks for everybody in South America for being great fans of the format. Like I said, your passion is contagious.
Thanks.
Lo escucharon aquí, chicos, en Landfall. Nuestra pasión es contagiosa. Me encanta. Entonces, bueno, vamos a dejar hasta aquí la transmisión. Chicos del chat, vamos a subir este video eventualmente. Nos va a tomar un rato para tener los subtítulos adecuados. No se preocupen, vamos a estar trabajando arduamente para que salga lo antes posible. Obviamente le agradecemos a Sheldon muchísimas. Thank you very much for being here with us. We hope to have you again sometime in the future, maybe with the spell table games, or maybe another interview when the time is due and it's relevant to have you again, not answering the same questions, of course. Quiero agradecer a Matías porque Matías logró esta conexión con Sheldon. Quiero agradecerle a todos ustedes por participar. Quiero agradecerle a Botella Vacía, Cold Adept, Gordos con Mochila, B Solitario, y Dark Sinner, Rebel Devils y Nago Mesor por seguir nuestro canal durante toda esta transmisión. Tuvimos un promedio de 50 televidentes y eso creo que es lo mejor que ha tenido el canal desde mucho tiempo. Así que vamos a dejarlo hasta aquí. Sheldon, we're going to leave it to here. Thank you very much.
Yo quería hacer un pequeño anuncio.
Right.
Sigan Black Sheep Wizard, la tienda de Santiago Sur. Empezó hoy día su campaña oficial de Magic the Gathering de Navidad para niños y niñas de escasos recursos. Así que para que revisen esas redes sociales.
And if you want to invite everybody to join our Discord server, you may.
Ok, perfecto. Están todos cordialmente invitados al Discord del Rus Committee. No sé si Matías tiene ahí el link para que lo puedas compartir.
I'm going to send the link of the RC community Discord in the chat, and I'm going to also link it in our website.
Super.
Sí, por supuesto. Y el Diegote, Landfall sí tiene Discord, te lo dejo aquí mismo. Eso es el Discord nuestro, ¿ya? Chicos, nuevamente, muchas gracias. Vamos a dejarlo hasta aquí. Llevamos 1 hora 45. Hay que irse a trabajar al día siguiente. Así que dejemos a Sheldon. Recuerde, Sheldon, we wish you a speedy recovery. Beat that bastard disease.
I will do my best.
Yes. And we'll see you next time. Hopefully.
Yep.
Nos vemos la próxima, chicos. Hasta la próxima.
All right, fellas,
Bye.
thanks.
Chao, chao.